So yesterday's video, we had worked on integrating marketplace features into our smart contract. ChatGPT actually gave us two options. We could either directly integrate or we could create a separate marketplace contract that we could use in conjunction with the first smart contract we had created for the profit distribution functionality. Now, anyone who watched yesterday's videos knows we ran into some errors. And so we did our best to troubleshoot. However, we weren't able to figure out how to properly orient the contract yesterday. And so I thought to myself, the whole point of this channel is to provide maximum value. And instead of reiterating and going over the same problem, while I work on the solution, hopefully being able to post that up tomorrow, I wanted to provide some insights from someone who's still very early in the learning curve as far as, best tips, best insights for creating your first smart contracts. So the first tip I'm going to give you guys when you're starting to get into the space is going to be building a foundation. Now, when it comes to building smart contracts, it quite literally is learning a language. You're learning how to speak and write code. Now, it's going to be a lot easier to read code and listen. Well, I guess you don't listen to code, but it's going to be a lot easier to read code than it is to write it in the beginning. And so one of the best ways you can start building an early foundation is by utilizing resources that are going to expose you to the terminology and the functionality of different pieces of code and information that you're going to use to put together your own smart contracts. Now, I've already gone over the process a bit on how to use ChatGPT as your own, let's say, sensei for coding, but there's a lot of other really good resources as well, especially if you can find real people who've built stuff on the blockchain already. Now, I still have to do some networking because I know, the Twitter space is great for meeting people in the crypto space. I know Discord should also be a pretty good space, and I believe Reddit as well. But where I did start with watching other people's content was YouTube. And so I'll give you guys two really good resources on YouTube that you guys can utilize to help just build that foundation and get a good understanding of what you're actually getting into in the first place. So the first resource on YouTube that you guys should check out is going to be the Ethereum tutorial that the New Boston, that's the name of the channel. They put out essentially a playlist which is comprised of about 11 videos, and it walks you through the very basics of how Ethereum works to setting up and deploying your first smart contract. It's very comprehensive and it explains it in a very simple way. I think most people could understand it if they sit down and watch. And so that's definitely going to be one of my top resources to use if you're just wanting to expose yourself to information on the blockchain, on Solidity, and get more familiar with the language of coding. Now, the second resource I'm going to shout out is Tech with Tim. Tim is very good if you want to have a deeper dive into the processes of actually learning how to be a developer. He's got a lot of great long format videos, and so I'll link his channel below in the description. Anybody who wants to check him out. Like I said, it's a really good tool if you want to get serious about the development space and, especially even if you're looking at it as a career. Now, once you've established a foundation and you're ready to start building on top of the things that you've learned, you want to keep it simple, especially when you're starting to build your very first contracts. Start with the very base of what's needed to give it the functionality that you have in mind. Now, you can always stack and incorporate other features and functionalities later, but once you've established that very base, you want to test it as thoroughly as possible because the more complex your contract gets, the more complicated it's going to be to actually read and understand what each piece of code means and to be able to make edits to the contract that are going to be essential for making sure that your code is running how it's supposed to. So first key point is going to just be keeping things simple. And if you want to stack on functionality in the future, you can always build on the base contract that you first create. Now, once you've created that first base contract, the second thing you're going to want to keep in mind is you want to test things as thoroughly as possible to ensure before you're starting to layer on additional features, your core fundamentals work properly. That was one of the mistakes I made with my first contract that we had deployed for the fund distribution, where I got super excited that I saw I was able to distribute funds successfully to the only NFT holder that I had actually practiced with. Well, come to find out when I start building in the marketplace features, not everything worked in the contract the way it's supposed to. So I'm now having to go back and make sure that the original contract functions smoothly and does everything that I had intended in the first place. Now, after you've been able to test things out, make sure everything's running smooth, and you can start building on layers, the third key point to keep in mind is that you want to think in order of operations. Essentially, what I mean is you don't need to work on a bunch of crazy features with security and making sure that nobody can hack your smart contract if you don't even have the proper minting, listing, and bidding features that you'd want to have so that people can actually trade the NFTs. So there's an order of operations. First, you want to make sure that the code allows for the functionality of what you want the contract to do. Second, you want to work on how people are able to actually interact with the contracts. And then third, once you have everything in place, then you can start building on security. And after you've done the security, if you have other ideas, you can work on them. But one of the cool things is with smart contracts is you can either build it in directly to the original contract itself, or you can build contracts that interact with the original later on to make sure that you're not editing things that are already working properly and smoothly in the first place. So key takeaway is you just want to think like an engineer. Keep things simple, test things thoroughly, and go by order of operations. If you follow those 3 rules, not only will you save yourself a lot of headache, but it's going to allow you to bypass a lot of mistakes that are really easy to avoid in the first place. So given we are still in the very early phases of learning how to code these smart contracts, I will be providing more insight as it comes, but honestly, those are the 3 main things that I've taken away just given what has happened over the last couple of days with trying to implement the marketplace contract and testing out the original code. So with that being said, we're going to keep things short and sweet for today, but I will be back tomorrow, hopefully with a solution with getting everything working smoothly with our original fund distribution contract. So those are just some of the key takeaways as me, myself, starting out very early in the journey of learning how to code smart contracts. If you guys derived any type of value from anything I just said, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys tomorrow for the next video.